Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Let's begin as always with the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin ends India visit after signing 20 key deals. Prime Minister Modi says India will build 12 more nuclear reactors with Russia's help. Campaigning for the fourth phase of assembly polls will come to an end today. Jharkhand and Jammu and Kashmir get ready for the penultimate phase. Protests are likely to continue in Parliament today over alleged forced conversions in Uttar Pradesh. 2 days after the Senate's report on torture methods, the CIA chief comes out in the agency's defense but admits some mistakes by a few officers. And India stunned Belgium to make it to the last four of the Champions Trophy, will face arch-rivals Pakistan in the semi-finals. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi held summit-level talks yesterday in Delhi. The two leaders signed 20 agreements in various fields. These include an agreement to build 12 more nuclear reactors in India by the year 2035. India reciprocated by iterating that Russia would remain its top defense supplier.
Times have changed. Our friendship has not. Now we want to take this relation to the next level, and this visit is a step in that direction. This tweet from Prime Minister Narendra Modi Wednesday night set the tone for Russian President Vladimir Putin's India visit, and the camaraderie was visible as the two met. India reaffirmed the commitment to its relationship with Russia, saying that Russia will remain India's top defense supplier, even though New Delhi's options had improved since the end of the Cold War.
Even as India's options have increased today, Russia will remain our most important defense partner.
The two sides have signed 20 agreements in all in the fields of oil, gas, defense, health, investment, mining, media and wind power. Among the more important ones is Russia agreeing to build at least 12 nuclear reactors in India by 2035. Russia will also boost the Make in India campaign by manufacturing advanced helicopters here.
Today, we have outlined an ambitious vision for nuclear energy of at least 10 more reactors. It will have the highest standards of safety in the world.
И взаимопониманием с Индией. Будем делать все для развития российско-индийского партнерства на благо наших двух великих держав.
The two sides also admitted that trade between the two countries has dwindled in the last few years. In a bid to correct this, India and Russia are working on a free trade agreement.
Практические меры по диверсификации взаимной торговли и дальнейшему наращиванию инвестиций. Условия стимулировать компании наших стран к более тесной взаимной совместной работе. Активнее переходить на использование национальных.
Putin's India visit comes at a time when Russia finds itself being increasingly isolated internationally over the Ukraine crisis. Even though there was some uncertainty over the old ties, it has all been laid to rest by the Modi government. The new leadership in India is less interested in geopolitics and more in jump-starting the economy as soon as possible. And with the Russian economy too in trouble, this looks like a match made in heaven. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning on this very subject is Professor Charanjit Singh, Center of Russian Studies, JNU. Good morning, Professor, and thank you for joining me on the program. You know, it's a win-win situation as far as India and Russia are concerned. You know, on one hand, the sanctions, the Western sanctions continue on Russia. Russia seems to be turning east now.
That is right. I think if we look at the summits held over the last few years, there is a sea change, at least in terms of the potential that has been lined up yesterday during the summit. Of the 20 pacts that have been signed, a few of the significant ones are direct import of diamonds into India by Indian companies, we were always importing a lot of diamonds from Russia, but through the European Union mostly. And Indian companies had been trying for long for direct imports, but were successful only to a very limited extent. So today's situation dictates to Russia that advantage be given to India, and not only in that area, obviously in the area of energy. In the area of joint production, Make in India program. On all these fronts, I think this summit can be called, at least as far as potential is concerned. Of course, the proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yes.
So when we actually get down to doing business and get the figures up, then we will know the real situation. But as things go, the deal with SR to supply oil, the Russians are saying the deal is worth $5 billion a year, which itself is, a quantum jump in the stagnating Indo-Russian trade.
Indeed. Both countries have agreed that in 2014 there will be $20 billion of trade between them. This is, a 100% jump. They have exactly doubled what it is right now.
Well, yes, this was agreed in 2010 that it will be doubled by 2015. However, till now, nothing was visible on the ground. Right now, things look much brighter, and we may not get to 20 billion in 2015. I still have my apprehensions about that, but we could be getting much closer to that figure, and then looking at another jump in the near future.
Okay, President Putin came here with a bag full of goodies, because let's not forget that the sanctions really have hurt Russia, and he's trying to turn over the economy, and he's trying to reach out to other countries that are willing to reciprocate. Now, India too has reciprocated, as a matter of fact, to state that Prime Minister Modi has said Russia will continue to be its largest military supplier. So India also giving a few assurances there to Russia.
Absolutely, because no real defense deal has been signed, but a lot of promises, of course, of production of of 220-60 helicopters in India and Mi-17 helicopters in India, talk of that, and developing the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor with Russian help. In his interview to PTI before the trip, Vladimir Putin had said also about other projects that Russia would like to bring to India, for instance, a butyl rubber plant, production of industrial tractors in India, etc. Therefore, Russia, yes, because for Russia it is not just business but also geopolitics, showing to the world that our allies are with us and they stand there. So the statement itself that Russia will remain its biggest military supplier means a lot to Russia.
India too has sent out a message to the world, to the US and the Western world as well, saying that, India is going to look after its interests first, and only then will it consider some of the other relationships it has with other countries, because the Western media is looking at this 15th Indo-Russian summit with a lot of skepticism.
That is right. Yes, India has shown, it has played its card well, shown to the world that we are an independent power. We are right up there with the best in the world, or close to them at least, and that we are not going to. And Prime Minister Modi also, in his recent interview to the American media, when asked about doing business with Russia in the wake of the Crimean Peninsula annexation, that is so called by the West, he said that there are many people in the world are ready to give advice, but if they look within themselves, they have also sinned.
Yes.
So that was a clear statement that we are not going to listen to the West. As
we will
regards
look after our interests first.
We will look after our interests, and I think that is the right thing to do.
All right. Professor Charanjit, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning and sharing your views with us on this
Thank
subject.
you. It was a pleasure.
Sure. All right. Let's move on now. Of course, later on Thursday, President Pranab Mukherjee hosted a banquet in honor of his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. The event was attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and other dignitaries at the president's official residence. Later at night, Putin wrapped up his visit to India and left for Moscow. Moving on now to some political news. Of course, campaigning for the fourth phase of polls will come to an end today in Jharkhand and Jammu and Kashmir. A total of 33 assembly seats will go to polls on Sunday, December the 14th. 15 seats will be at stake in Jammu and Kashmir in this phase. PDP patron Mufti Mohammad Saeed from Anantnag constituency will be among those in the fray on Sunday. Meanwhile, in Jharkhand, voting will be held in 18 assembly constituencies. The seats are mostly in the industrial belt of the state. This will be the penultimate phase of assembly polls in the two states. Results will be declared on December 23rd. Moving on now, the issue of conversions in Agra may dominate parliament proceedings for a third day today. Yesterday, the opposition members demanded an immediate discussion on the matter. The issue triggered a war of words between the opposition and the Treasury benches, even as the government expressed readiness for a debate and possible legislation on conversions. Here's more.
The opposition demanding a discussion on the issue of conversions. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu insisted there's need for a law to prevent conversions through the use of force and blandishments.
What I appeal to all parties in the country is seriously introspect on this. Let there be anti-conversion laws in all the states. Let there be anti-conversion law at the center also. Let us all seriously work towards the progress.
Earlier, the opposition criticized the alleged incident of forcible conversions in Agra. The Congress demanded a reply from the Prime Minister, while the TMC called for an end to such divisive incidents.
जवाबदेही इस सदन में और इस देश के प्रति प्रधानमंत्री का बनता है और उनके तरफ से हम स्पष्टीकरण और जवाबदेही चाहते हैं। पूरा विश्व आज भारत को देख रहा है।
टीटी कृष्णमाचारी और के मुंशी ने क्या कहा था आर्टिकल 25 पर जब बहस हो रही थी, आप इस तरह का कानून नहीं बना सकते कि आप कोई अपना मजहब तब्दील ना करे।
कई भेदभाव हैं, उन सारे भेदभावों पर हम लोग यहाँ संकल्प लें, एक प्रस्ताव किया जाए, प्रस्ताव पास किया जाए।
I am worried, and I will again, through you, sir, appeal to the members of the ruling party. Sir, let us give up this divisive attitude.
Earlier, the Speaker disallowed the notice by the opposition parties to suspend question hour, stating that it contravened rules. But the dissent by the members prompted her to adjourn the House till 12. During 0 hour, the government assured members that the discussion will be taken up after lunch hour. The protest continued after the House reassembled, leading to yet another adjournment till 3 p.m. When finally the discussion was taken up, the opposition walked out, stating that it was dissatisfied with the government's reply. Shyam Sundar and Pranam Goswami's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
It's time for a short break now, but up next, despite widening current account deficit, RBI Chief Raghuram Rajan isn't a bothered man. We'll tell you why after this short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back, you're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. Well, RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan has assured that the central bank is comfortable with the current account deficit even after it widened it in the July-September quarter. Rajan said that gold imports had increased in the country, which may have resulted in the increase in the CAD. Amid growing pressure from the government to cut rates, Rajan said an interest rate cut won't be by itself lead to higher economic growth, although he noted it would have an impact. He also said that the RBI was in discussions with the government about reviewing priority sector lending norms for foreign banks operating in India. The current account deficit widened to 2.1% of gross domestic product in the July-September quarter, higher than both the previous quarter and a year earlier.
My sense is that the fall in oil prices will give us some cushion going forward. How long we can rely on that? Again, it's a matter of some uncertainty. But I'm also hopeful that as inflation comes down and fixed income securities become more attractive, people turn towards investing either in deposits or bonds or even in the stock market as opposed to the substantial use of gold as an investment vehicle.
Well, here's a look now at the other news-making stories from across the nation in our segment Nationwide. Bihar Chief Minister Jitan Ram Manjhi has called for raising the bar on reservation from the present 49.5% to 80% for the OBCs, SC/STs and other backward sections. He has said that he will work for building a consensus on the issue with the like-minded parties and, if needed, may launch an agitation to raise the reservation bar. He has also urged leaders of different parties to raise the issue in the ongoing session of Parliament. An oil tanker carrying around 350 tons of oil, which capsized on the Sheel River in the Sundarbans on Tuesday, now threatens the world's largest mangrove ecosystem. According to latest reports, the oil slick has spread around 25 kilometers and a further spread could lead to a massive ecological disaster. A high alert has been sounded and forest officials along with the other security agencies are closely monitoring the situation. The CBI has filed its closure report in the death of two teenage girls in Badaयूं early this year. The report rules out rape and murder, concluding that it was a case of suicide. It also mentions questionable actions of the girls' families, leaving it to the court to take further action. The report was filed before the special court in Badaयूं. A Haryana court sent Rampal to judicial custody on Thursday following the completion of the 3-day police remand. He was produced before the court in connection with the death of a woman follower at his Hisar ashram during the recent standoff between his disciples and the police. Apart from the murder case, Rampal faces charges of sedition, attempt to murder, waging war against the state government, rioting, illegal detention, among others. Well, let's take a look now at what's in store for today in our segment, The Day Ahead. The consumer price inflation data for the month of November and index of industrial production data for October will be released today. In October, the CPI stood at 5.52%, while in November last year, the figure stood at 11.24%. The IIP in October last year was 1.8%, while in September this year, it was at a 3-month high at 2.5%. CBI court hearing the coal blocks case will take into consideration the agency's closure report in the case related to allocation of Talabira 2 and 3 coal blocks in Odisha in 2005. On 27 November, complying with the court's order, the CBI had filed the case diary and crime files in a sealed cover in the case relating to Hindalco. It also told the court that it was not permitted to examine then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who was holding the additional charge of coal portfolio during that time. Suspended TMC MP and Sharda scam accused Kunal Ghosh's judicial remand ends today. A Kolkata court had extended his remand on November 27th along with that of Sharda chief Sudipto Sen and his associate Devjani Mukherjee. West Bengal Transport Minister Madan Mitra is also likely to be questioned in the case by the CBI today. President Pranab Mukherjee will visit Mussoorie today. He will be the chief guest at the valedictory function of the 89th Foundation course of the All India Services. The event will be held at the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy of Administration. The President will be received by State Governor Aziz Qureshi and Chief Minister Harish Rawat. Moving on to some international news now. 2 days after a damning report of the CIA's torture methods during terror interrogations, the agency's chief has come out in its defense. However, CIA Director John Brennan admitted that some of the techniques may have been harsh and abhorrent. He also said that some officers acted beyond their authority. Here's the report.
CIA Director John Brennan defended his agency from accusations in a Senate report that it used inhuman interrogation techniques against terrorist suspects with no security benefits to the nation. Brennan opened a rare news conference on Thursday by recounting the horrors of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, his agency's determination to prevent another such assault, and the fact that CIA officers were the first to fight and early to die in the Afghanistan war. He conceded that unauthorized and in some cases abhorrent methods were used against the captives.
It is vitally important to recognize, however, that the overwhelming majority of officers involved in the program at CIA carried out their responsibilities faithfully and in accordance with the legal and policy guidance they were provided. They did what they were asked to do in the service of our nation.
The United Nations and human rights groups have called for the prosecution of U.S. officials involved in the 2001 to 2007 program. But Brennan asserted that the CIA did a lot of things right in a time when there were no easy answers.
The previous administration faced agonizing choices about how to pursue al-Qaeda and prevent additional terrorist attacks against our country, while facing fears of further attacks and carrying out the responsibility to prevent more catastrophic loss of life.
Brennan also said that the CIA did not intentionally deceive the president and the public. He said the CIA believes that information gained from detainees who were subjected to enhanced interrogation helped locate al-Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden. He also said several U.S. allies who share intelligence expressed concern over the release of the Senate report.
But what I've told them is that it's important for our partnership to move forward and to strengthen in the years ahead because of the nature of the national security challenges we face. And so I am interested in making sure that we're able to do that.
Brennan is probably facing the toughest stint as the CIA boss amid widespread criticism over the Senate report. But the chances of prosecuting officials involved in such interrogations seems unlikely so far. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, with the climate summit in Lima reaching its final days, India reiterated its commitment to fight against climate change. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar expressed confidence that the UN climate summit is a stepping stone towards a post-2020 deal that will address genuine needs of developing nations. Meanwhile, thousands took to the streets in Lima in a protest march against changing climate conditions.
Waving flags and playing drums, thousands of protesters from across the world joined the People's Climate March in Lima, where the UN Climate Summit is nearing its final days.
Scientists say we're about to hit these tipping points of no return on climate. And the fact that negotiators are coming together in Lima is huge and positive. However, we still know we have so far to go.
Speaking at the summit, Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar said India is committed to play its part in the global fight against climate change.
Our ambition in post-2020 period is directly linked to the ambitious actions in the pre-2020 period by the developed countries.
Calling for putting a limit to global warming, several Latin American leaders also met UN Chief Ban Ki-moon.
Sabemos que si no alcanzamos un acuerdo en la próxima conferencia de París, es posible que estemos llegando demasiado tarde. El éxito de la COP21 del año próximo dependerá en buena medida de los acuerdos alcanzados acá.
Hoy respaldamos la declaración de los presidentes de la Alianza del Pacífico en materia de cambio climático en la COP20, que recién ha sido leído y que se ha dado a conocer a la sociedad y a la opinión pública.
International summits are held almost every year in the name of climate change, but it was indeed an eye-opener when a 9-year-old Ryan presented the UN chief with a box containing signatures from people across the world calling for action.
This box holds the 2.2 million signatures of people all around the world that think that there's a chance that we can save the climate.
Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Some more international news now. US President Barack Obama expressed caution about the possibility of the United States adding more sanctions against Russia. Obama urged a go-slow approach to new sanctions against Russia to curb its aspirations in Ukraine. The US President suggested that the new sanctions could initiate a rift between the US and Europe. With some lawmakers on Capitol Hill considering more sanctions, Obama told the President's Export Council that the current path he is taking, in which the United States operates largely in lockstep with Europe, he hopes that it will eventually force Russian President Vladimir Putin to give up plans to enter Ukraine.
Putin does not have good cards, and he actually has not played them as well as sometimes the Western press seems to give him credit for. There's been an improvisational quality to this whole process. because the situation in Ukraine actually took Russia by surprise. And it's working for him politically, domestically, but profoundly damaging in terms of their economy long term, not just short term.
Moving on to some sports news now, the Indian men's hockey team stunned Belgium in the quarterfinals of the Champions Trophy yesterday. India came back from behind to secure a 4-2 win to set up a semi-final clash with arch rivals Pakistan.
Buoyed by the surprise victory against the Netherlands, India took on Belgium in the quarterfinals of Champions Trophy in Bhubaneswar on Thursday. Another inspired performance was required from the Indian team to make it to the last four. But India started badly. The team conceded 2 goals within the first 18 minutes. But the hosts, ranked 9th in the world, immediately pulled one back in that very minute through Rupinder Pal Singh. Buoyed by the 7,000-strong home crowd at the Kalinga Stadium, the Indian team bounced back strongly and went on the offensive. SK Uthappa levelled the proceedings in the 27th minute. Later, Akashdeep Singh and Dharamveer Singh scored to ensure one of India's most famous victory in the recent times. By virtue of this win, India has also avenged upon their 2-3 defeat against Belgium in this year's World Cup at The Hague, Netherlands. India will now take on arch rivals Pakistan in the semi-finals on Saturday. Pakistan defeated the Netherlands in another quarter-final by the same margin. In the second semi-final, world champions Australia will meet Olympic champions Germany. Australia defeated Argentina while Germany beat England in the other 2 quarter-finals to set up the last 4 clash. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, in some more sports news now, India finished their first innings at 444 today in the first test at Adelaide against Australia. Captain Virat Kohli led his team with a century. India's last 5 wickets fell inside 1 hour this morning. At lunch on day 4, Australia were batting at 32 for no loss and leading the match by 105 runs. Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.